Hey, I hope lunch was great. I hope the exhibits were great. I'm Robin Raskin with the Virtual Events Group, but you can just call me Marty's doppelganger. This afternoon's kind of a treat. So how many of you in the audience are involved in your corporate events? All right, I see a couple of hands. So as corporate events evolve, they are much akin to sports events and to rock and roll events. So this time, for the first year ever, we decided to phrase the panel what the events world and the corporate world could learn from rock and roll. And that is where we're going to take you for the next 30 minutes. I want to introduce good friend and supporter of Silicon Valley Video Summit, Sherry Huss. Sherry's with Freeman. And yes, oh my God, bringing down the house. And she'll introduce the rest of the panelists and love your feedback because we're pretty excited about this one. Thank you.
Great.
Seamless
Thank you,
live
Robin.
video production is essential in today's corporate world. At Ross Video, we provide scalable, reliable solutions tailored to meet the demands of any live video production, no matter the complexity. Our corporate solutions provide effective strategies for AV and IT leaders, ensuring hassle-free, high-quality video tools for delivering exceptional live content. For studio productions, Ross transforms dedicated workspaces into versatile hubs for podcasts, webinars, and beyond. With Ross, your studio adapts to every need, effortlessly. Planning a live event? Ross specializes in delivering engaging experiences across all spaces, connecting in-person and hybrid audiences seamlessly. With a proven track record, global support, and innovative technology, Ross is your trusted partner for live video excellence. Engage your audience and elevate your company with Ross Video.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I have a really super special and interesting panel, and I have to say we've had some great conversations over the past couple of weeks about what these gentlemen do and how they've influenced, corporate and rock and roll world, and look forward to kicking it off. We do know that rock and roll has pretty much changed everything, and it's not just about music, but it's how people show up. And since COVID, lots of things have changed, especially in the enterprise. Have you noticed stages are bigger, technology's like more awesome and larger and bigger than life, and even things like metrics now and click-throughs and how people are tracking it are really kind of key. And this group is really quite good at having their finger on the pulse. And maybe before we kick it off, we'll just have everyone do a little bit of an introduction since you all have quite interesting backgrounds. And Nathaniel, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel Hare. I work with Clair Global. My title there is both sound designer and account executive, so I both work on sort of the business side of things as well as the creative. Clair, if show of hands, how many people know about Clair Global? All right. So Clair, if you don't know, is the largest live sound company in the world. Most of what we do is concert touring. So of the top 10 concert tours last year, we had all 10. Of the top 200, we had about 80%. What I do for Clair Global is everything that isn't that. So when someone calls up Clair and describes a gig and the last word of the sentence is not the word tour, it gets patched through to me. I do corporate events, broadcast events, a lot of the intersection of sports, broadcasting, and entertainment, occasionally theatrical and symphonic work, all sorts of other things. My background, I started out doing theater, Broadway and off-Broadway and stuff in Chicago, and then transitioned and worked in broadcast for many years at NBC, and now I'm at Clair. I've been there for about a decade. So there you go.
Great. Paul?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Paul Liszewski, and well, I'll say for a click over the last 4 decades, I have sort of straddled squarely between corporate events, music events, special events, and mega events. So although I've never spent a night on a tour bus, I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of artists in really unique performance environments around the world. but certainly understanding the enterprise corporate realm of production, from ballrooms to arenas and stadiums to mega events like the Super Bowl, and then spending close to 17 years on retainer and contract with BMG and Sony Music as an event producer. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thanks, Paul. And Chuck, you're up.
Yeah. I actually started out kind of in the video world back in 1970, 71. I was working with half-inch helical scan video with a 30-pound box that it fit in. You could put it on your backpack and you could roam around and play things back to people immediately. That doesn't sound very exciting in this room today. But boy, in 71, it was changing things. And I approached a couple of people, including the Grateful Dead, with an idea in 74 of doing live video projection. Now, the reality is I was probably a decade ahead of the technology, and they laughed at me and threw me out the door. But it allowed me to go down the road to where Nathaniel is now and join up with Clair Brothers in about 72. And at that point, they were one of the preeminent sound companies, and it allowed me to go out on tour with everybody from the Stones to Fleetwood Mac to Skynyrd, a wide variety of artists. And at the end of the 70s, I moved to Los Angeles and started working independently, primarily as a sound engineer, but that gradually morphed into tour management as well, and got to watch the rise of rock and roll not just being a couple of lighting trusses and a sound system. You know, we started adding things, and if the ceiling could hold it, we'd put it up. And it's been an interesting thing to watch it now be something where we've got an opening act showing up, and they're no longer asking about how much space on stage they have. They want to know how much of the video screen they get to use. First question out of their mouths. So we're dealing with something that almost every year exponentially gets larger and larger in terms of what we can produce out there for the audience.
Great. So in our pre-call, about 7 key themes kind of popped up, and I hope we'll get to address most of them today. But for me, the biggest one is that actually entertainment is now primary in the enterprise. It's not secondary anymore, and maybe this came because or after COVID, but we're going to kind of do free round, so anyone can jump in here and share your perspective. Nathaniel.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, when you look back, like, a couple decades ago, the sort of idea of, what a corporate event was the entertainment element of it was sort of a secondary thing, that it was primarily sort of a meeting on a larger scale. I think that has changed, and not only has that changed, that has now sort of become a part of our culture, that we expect entertainment and sort of the passing of information to be intertwined. And if you look a few years ago, I think the roots of sort of entertainment and corporate events came more from theater initially, and sort of that was the background of sort of how it was structured and cued and things like that. And then I think it moved into sort of the broadcast world, and that obviously overlaps with a lot of the attendees here. But I think in the recent years, and particularly post-COVID, you're seeing sort of the rise of sort of the CEO or, the speakers being seen as rock stars. I mean, if you look at Lenovo's recent event they did at the Sphere during CES just a few weeks ago, it's big production, a lot of the overlap between sort of a rock and roll style production and a corporate production, that those are still now becoming seamless. And this is a part of our day-to-day lives. In many ways, one of the biggest broadcast events of the year, which is the halftime of the Super Bowl, happening here next week, a plug for that little event, that is a corporate event. It's, sandwiched, it's a piece of entertainment that's sandwiched between 2 sporting events. But if you swapped out sporting with some sort of keynote, yeah, they would be the same thing.
Yeah, I would say, right, and Nathaniel and I have some history together. And yes, we see a lot of corporate executives in the rock star light, but we also now see, and I'm sure many in this room see this, experience this, but the incorporation of rock stars onto that keynote stage, right? Just in the last few years, we've done things for YouTube where on the keynote stage with the CEO, we've got Billie Eilish or Doja Cat or Lady Gaga that sort of come and go, right? It's not as much. There's still the final night concert, so to speak, but more and more we're also seeing, whether it's music event or music person or performance or celebrity, they're incorporating it into the messaging, right? More impact. And with that comes technology, production, and sort of the flair of all that goes along with that, right? We were just talking, right, and Keith Urban, who you've got a long history with, how you're doing some corporate stuff with him, even just coming up in Las Vegas, right? That I think there was a time on the artist side where corporate events was like taboo. It was on your way down. You had peaked and you were on your way down and you were doing, you know, the ballroom shows with the buffet lines, and that's come a long, long way, and now it is very much so where the technology in those keynotes or in those rooms are modeled after the riders, or that's used as a base scale to build presentation systems around a performance system.
Yeah, I mean, we're also seeing even from the corporate end, the expectation of the talent, you know, who are the speakers at the keynote, that they're expecting to see the sort of production that a rock star would have. And in that world, putting that musical performance sometimes in the middle of the show rather than at the end or at the beginning of the show feels like a natural thing, because the messaging to the audience in that situation is that these are all one and the same. Yeah. That this is not, okay, you know, here's your veggies and then you get the treat at the end. It's, you know.
Well, I also think the artists have become a lot more sophisticated as well. As you pointed out, at one point it seemed like it's the nadir of your career, and throughout the 90s I'd have people on the road, major acts, and literally every other song they'd come off to the wings and go, "Are we done yet? Can I leave?" Right. It wasn't fun. But as the artists have grown and developed, they're used as much for fireside chats as well as the entertainment, and that'll oftentimes be woven into the contract. The other part is the contracts are substantially larger because you're not going to have that exchange with the artist unless you're offering them something that's of real value. And with those artists, one of the key things, especially as we're looking at CEOs front and center, spotlight on them, is how engaging the artist can be. And that's something that the agencies have to look at as well. Because if you've got somebody who gets up there and word gets out that, wow, I met that person, I was connected with them, and when I went out on stage to introduce them, it was vital for us, he's a much more sellable commodity in terms of what you can put out there.
Cool. So production and rehearsal facilities. I'm blown away by Rocklitz. And I don't know if any of you know about Rocklitz, but these gentlemen will share a little bit. But they put people, purpose, planet, it's a whole ecosystem, and they have a campus, they have studios, they focus on culture and community, like areas that are really important, and not only help nurture all the folks that are producing the event, but have the best technology and whatnot. And I'd love to hear, and I think actually all of you have had some connection with Rocklitz.
Yeah, I can kind of start that. So Rocklitz is based in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, which is a tiny town just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So it's about 90 minutes.
Tiny town outside of a tiny town.
It's a tiny town outside of a tiny town. It's about 90 minutes west of Philly or 90 minutes north of Baltimore. And it is the home of Clair Global. It's where Clair started, and then eventually Tate Towers, which is a big scenic and automation company, was based there. And there's a whole bunch of other entertainment technology companies that are based in this tiny town. And they all sort of realized at a certain point that one thing that all of these large music productions primarily that they were supporting needed was rehearsal space. And typically how these tours would rehearse is you would go rent a arena in some sort of D market or something, and you need it for a month for your rehearsals, but eventually halfway through that rehearsals, that piece of scenic automation that's the size and weight of a boxcar breaks, and now your rehearsals are on the other side of the country from the scenic shop that built it, and you have to spend an enormous amount of money to get the thing fixed or whatever the problem is. So instead, they built the rehearsal facility co-located with all of these companies. And the rehearsal facility is now several rehearsal facilities, but the two largest are essentially the size of an arena minus the seats. And those spaces can have enormous capacity to house the crew, to feed the crews as they're rehearsing, all of the equipment and resources that the shops that are supporting these tours and these events are literally across the parking lot from the rehearsal hall. So when they need something, service is right there. You know, I should also say a few neat things about the campus. It is all of the buildings that are on this campus are covered in solar panels, so they are actually all carbon neutral. They don't pull anything from the grid. And several of them are heated with geothermal. So it's all of this where it's both looking after the people, the show, the environment, all are happening in one place. And we've done this in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, and just as of 2 weeks ago, we've now opened a campus in Nashville. So there's a Rock Nashville as well.
Fun fact about Lidditz, you can also like see some of the biggest stars in the world driving down the street in a limo right past an Amish horse and buggy because it's in the middle of Amish country. Yes, it's used for all of these music tours, right? So many of them pass through there. But straddling back to corporate, I've spent 3 years there for almost 2 weeks a year doing the YouTube Brandcast upfront. So we spend 12, 13 days in there building a show that we eventually put into Lincoln Center, right? That would be cost prohibitive to build that show and run that media. It's a highly complex event, lots of automation of LED moving, automation and staging, music performances, corporate performances, content rehearsals, all happen at Lidditz. So the cross-section, once again, of corporate enterprise and music at a facility as robust as that with the 40 co-located brands and the hotel and all the back of house.
And campus dogs.
Yep.
Yes. And it allows us there also, right? Again, how does corporate and enterprise learn from rock and roll? When we load that show out from Lidditz to go to New York, we load it in the manner of which we're going to put it into that building through a few 24-hour shifts. So just all of it, as opposed to just the video truck arrives, the audio truck arrives, the lighting truck arrives. No, the trucks are co-located as well. So those systems are going in at the same time. They're all going up.
Yeah, and you know, maybe Chuck, you can share a little bit too about even the care and feeding of the crew. And the crew, when we talked about this as well, like there are many different lanes of crew and different directors, but I think that Lidditz takes that into consideration, and I know you've had a lot of experience managing that.
Well, Paul had just mentioned that you've got everything coming in a tier stack generally, and most of the venues that, most of the arenas that we're going into nowadays and involve, if you're an A-level act, you're probably carrying your own stage. So you're rigging at one end of the building at the beginning of the morning while the stage is built on another end. And that way the back line can come up, set pieces can be placed while lights, video, and all the automation are getting off the ground. And then you can wheel it underneath. And there is a choreography to getting that done. One of the things that I always liked about Rock Lidditz, and they're going to have a problem with Rock Nashville on this, is unless you really want to go fishing or to some specific local bars, Rock Lidditz allows everybody to focus on the tour and what's about to get done. They're going to have quite a few more distractions in Nashville, but as a tour manager, the one time I got to go in there at length was I loved that everybody's getting home at a sane hour and I'm not looking at destruction when we come in the next day at 7 a.m.
And the bar there's a hotel on the property, which is amazing. And the bar in the hotel is called Per Diem. Perfect.
And that's where it goes. And there is a hierarchical structure, and I'm sure there is in a lot of the playgrounds that you guys are putting events up in. But one of the things I've always found is that that's okay from the paymaster's point of view, but if you're providing a service for them and they're bringing the trucks in or they're doing the rigging before anybody else is out of bed, they need just as much, if not more, attention than everybody else. And that's something that I think that Rock Lidditz and Rock Nashville both are going to be able to provide. And Paul's had real-time non-touring experience in them.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, towards the people thing, the live event, we have a big hand in playing what sort of the live event technology world is. And one of the things that we realized some time ago, Claire has been famous for years for building a lot of our own equipment, our own speakers and cases and things. We started building our own people too. And we have an in-house training program, and some of that training program is the nuts and bolts things you'd expect, learning electrical safety, rigging safety, networking, all of that stuff. A lot of it is also teaching people mindfulness, how to take care of your mental health on the road, how to take care of your physical health on the road. This is a business that ebbs and flows, how to look after your financial health on the road so that you're doing okay in the off season, and that is sort of a part of the mentality of a place like Lidditz that is kind of magical.
Yeah, no, I love it. That sounds great. So metrics. Rock and roll has fans, and I think the corporate world now is trying to figure this out. How do you make sure that you've got the metrics, the clicks for both in person and online, and maybe in perpetuity? I don't know.
Sounds like a question for the marketing panel. Not that,
Well,
no.
yeah, we'll talk about that more, but it's
Right.
really key.
No, and I think a lot of people in this room can recall pre-COVID. It was all about butts and seats. How many people are in the room? How many people are attending? How are you getting, just audience acquisition in general, in real life, in person? There was, we used to do the webcast, which was essentially a 16:9 camera cut, many times matched the iMag in the room with a, maybe a pipped-in graphic of what the slides were, or some modified widescreen graphic put into a 16:9 pip. COVID taught us that, wow, we can reach a lot of people, not only through, video conferencing like we did during those COVID years, but coming out of it, the audience that was 500 to 5,000 was accompanied by 50,000 online, right? And so it became, I think the mindset shift has become more of television in front of a live studio audience. And yes, we want impact. There is impact. We're talking about the entertainment level and all of the things we do in the room, but the reach are the 1 to 10 million people we see, over the live stream or on the, the video on demands.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly see, I don't want to say who it is, but they're a fruit-based computing company located about 30 minutes south of here. They have shifted their strategy to, where pre-COVID it was very much the emphasis on the big live event show thing, to now it's a pre-produced event, and that they're, clearly their idea is that is more impactful to reach people via that than simply having a smaller, audience in person.
Right.
What about constraints? And Chuck, I'm going to throw this one to you. Creative, control, budget, how do you handle all of this? And what can the enterprise learn from that?
The primary pages of our concert rider for corporate dates is probably twice as long as the one that we use for a regular production. A lot of that is because of some assumptions that might be made, but most of it is to be very, very specific. For me, I think there were like two big turning points in corporate time. One was the early 90s when it was no longer really the nadir. They had real money, it just nobody wanted to do it. And one of the big problems I had as a tour manager was always getting told it was too loud. And I'm going, well, why did you hire them? And so the first sentence in the rider is, you have no control over that anymore. This is what you bought. And no, you don't get to build the set list. And, you know, some of the stuff is seemingly stupidly simple, but you still have to get it in there because this is a business proposition. This isn't simply about selling tickets. This is about filling the seats and keeping your audience connected to the audience, to the artists that you brought in. And inevitably, in any corporate environment, they're not all going to be into that artist. And I think that's a real key, that those who are in buying it need to be paying attention to who they're bringing in and what their track record is, because you can find that out very easily with the agencies. There are some bands that are really great, but they go to play for somebody and, well, he just stood there like a mannequin and step and repeat, and I had 100 people who have the lamest pictures they've ever seen. And unfortunately, the picture for those VIPs is sometimes the #1 thing that you've spent several $1 million to put up that night. I know that sounds silly, but it's been my experience that it's very true. So.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, well, to that point, right, there are some artists that totally get it, right? They know how to handle the meet and greets. And even on stage, like many of them, you know, are asking to be fed information, the names of the senior leadership or of, you know, something specific about the company or recent success because they want to call it out. Others, it's just amazing. They're not interested at all. And we won't name names, but there are some that, yeah, and that's the perfect story about the step and repeat. Like they're standing there like you're bothering them as you're paying them all this money. It's a tough one, man. The artists in the corporate world, because it's not a paying audience, you're going to have fans, you're going to have people that just aren't. I've seen artists walk off stage. I've seen artists explode. But then, you know, you see the audiences explode with the right alignment of an artist. And that comes down to the buyer and the agent making sure that you're making the right purchase and not just the favorite band of the CEO.
One quick thing on the step and repeats. Mr. Urban, who I spent a lot of time with, and then the artist immediately prior to that in my career was Paul McCartney. And both of them did something I've seen very few people do, which is they ask every person who enters for a step and repeat what their name is, what brought them here, and if it's a corporate, they get that. But he really connects with them. Both Paul and Keith did it on a level that I've never, you know, they weren't mannequins. And with every one of those, the CEO was introducing their best friend, and the folks in the audience are watching and moving off of him. And it's suction.
Nice.
You know, there's traction that pulls them into it.
Yep, a good lesson in humanity. We have just a few minutes left, but tech is constantly changing. And in the call, I actually think Paul mentioned that, Nathaniel, you did something super cool. I can't remember what it was, but how do you handle changing technology? Like, it's just moving so fast.
I think you're referring to FIFA Club World Cup.
Yes.
Last July.
Yeah.
And coming up again this July.
Yeah. So we did the FIFA Club World Cup last year, and like you said, we'll be doing the World Cup this year at MetLife Stadium. For the finals, they wanted to have an upgraded sound system. So we hung a catenary system, which is a series of cables that stretched from one side of the stadium from the other, and then hung arrays from those. Like I sort of mentioned earlier, we manufacture our own speakers. We also manufacture a lot of our other technology. And one of the challenges of the geometry of that particular stadium is that given the distances from the arrays to wherever you could put the amp racks, you would end up having to run an enormous length of cable, like 650 plus feet of cable, which with speaker level cable means you're going to get garbage out the other end of the cable. What we ended up doing was we redesigned our system where we could hide a bunch of our amps in one of the line array cabinets and had all of the amplifiers co-located with the arrays, which allowed us to be able to put these arrays where they needed to be. These new amplifiers are also extremely power efficient, where an array at full tilt boogie, louder than 80,000 people playing song 2 after Paris Saint-Germain scores a goal, each array was only pulling about as much power as a toaster oven, which is, you know, being able to, I know Americans will measure anything but the metric system, but we're measuring output in toasters now. So that, you know, being able to do that was terrific.
So we have less than 2 minutes left. Any closing remarks? Quick.
I just want to say, you breezed over that, and I know we did speak about it on the call, but it was a freaking genius design that, you know, I've never seen anything like it. And to replace what is a distributed system in an older stadium with that design, we brought the NFL there. We attempted to have the NFL do that here at Levi Stadium for Super Bowl. They're regretting that right now. I can tell you that. I just came from there. But it was a brilliant design, and just talking about like innovation. So I know we're trying to close. I just didn't want the genius of you to get passed up on, because it was a beautiful design.
Thank you.
You want to talk about me now?
Yeah, he's good looking, smells terrific. You guys don't know that, but.
Sorry, we're being serious.
Well, Chuck, final word.
Well, I think it's pretty clear to everybody here that the most innovative end right now, and this isn't a takeaway from the brilliance, what Clair Brothers done with audio is still video. You know, on a 24-month rotation, the amount of information that you can get into a video screen, the intensity that you can display it with, doubles every time. I mean, Moore's Law, all of those metrics continue to play into it, and it remains the most exciting area out there. So good for you being into it.
Here to that. Yes, pixel power for sure.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all. I mean, I've learned a lot from you, and it's, you know, I think number one, it's not just, it's connecting with people. It's not even just that. It's even playing with them, and you all do such a wonderful job. And thank you for being here today. And that's a wrap.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.